A cousin of mine who I believe was just 1 year older than I, she died when she was very young. Siguro mga 6 or 7 years old pa lang siya noon. Sa Nasugbu, Batangas sila nakatira, and they were not financially well off. My uncle was an employee, and my aunt was a small entrepreneur. And this was at a time when the town was not yet fully developed, and I guess excellent health care was not readily available. She contracted a serious illness, and their family, being poor, I guess they were unable to bring her to a good hospital in time. So my cousin died at a very young age, and I learned from my dad that this tragedy was devastating for my uncle and aunt. One of the most difficult things to accept in life is the death of a small child. It can happen in all kinds of situations. A child can be involved in a fatal accident, or that child can be infected with life-threatening diseases. Regardless of how a young child passes on, we know deep in our bones it is not right. Something is deeply wrong when a small child loses his or her life. When people who are in their 80s or 90s pass on, there can be a sense of relief that these people have lived their lives in full, and it's time for them to rest, especially if they are already weak or have been bedridden due to illness. When people in their 60s or 70s pass on, there is a sense that, it would have been good for them to have lived a few more years, but at the same time, there's a sense of acceptance when they have to go. Panahon na talaga nila. It's really their time, you would say. When someone who's younger than 60 passes on, almost everyone would say that person died too soon. That there is so much more to life, and it is too early for them to die. So how much more do we refuse to accept the death of people who are just in their 40s or in their 30s and 20s? And how much more do we revolt at the idea of someone less than 10 years old passing on? We know it is not right. There is so much of life ahead of them. We often say no parent should bury his or her child. That is perhaps one of the most painful experiences a parent can ever suffer in this life. And there are strong temptations to question God. Why does God allow something as tragic as that to happen to young and innocent children? We feel like no one deserves to die before one has lived a full life. There are no simple answers to these questions. Any attempt to come up with an explanation only brings up more questions. People do not die young because they are too good, that God had to take them away, or they are too bad that they have to be removed from this life. That's not how things work in this world. The Bible views this tragedy as something that's simply a part of living in this imperfect world. Death is a part of life. And that includes the death of a young child or very young people. It is a reality that we have to accept, no matter how painful it can be. Consider this passage in the book of Isaiah. The righteous man perishes, and no one lays it to heart. Devout men are taken away, while no one understands. For the righteous man is taken away from calamity. He enters into peace. They rest in their beds who walk in their uprightness. The passage tells us that being a good person does not exempt anyone from the tragedies of life. Bad things happen to people, and that includes premature death. Now, I don't know why this is so. The passage does not offer any explanation. And I don't think anyone, no theologian, no philosopher, no wise man can ever provide any adequate explanation why people die young. There is something in this passage, though, something that offers a bit of assurance. It says that the righteous who die enter into peace. They enter into God's shalom, the peace of God. Now, isn't that what we sometimes really long for? to have a life of complete well-being, of peace, especially in a world that is filled with so much troubles. This passage also tells us one other thing. Since we have no control over the life and death of people, then we must not take the people we love for granted. This passage compels us to love them now, not tomorrow. Show them how much you care now, not next week. As we reflect on the brevity of life and how life and death are completely in the hands of God, even that of young people, let us always remember, faith matters too.